world building is an essential part of every fantasy novel. And with me today, I have a few very special guests to talk about that exact subject. Fantasy novels are one of the best ways to get out of reality and enter into a world that can help us forget all the craziness that's happening in the world today. So I hope you enjoy this episode. And I hope you enjoy my interview with Jeanette Teakley. And in the comments, tell me what your favorite fantasy novel is, or your favorite fantasy author, or your favorite part of world building. And I hope you enjoy.
Today's episode is called Build Me a Dream, which is focusing on fantasy fiction. I think we all have romance in your stories, right? All of you?
Yes.
Okay, so romantasy. All right, so today's guests, we have Mona Storm, who is the author of I don't know if I'm saying it right, so you correct me if I say it wrong. The Draconic Chronicles?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay, which includes a novelette, which is called Night Song of the Shadows, book 1, and Man of No House, which they're all out, right? I saw that Man of No House just came out recently, right?
Yeah, they are all out, which is great.
Awesome. So you got to go get them. And then we also have Willow Asteria. Now, I am not going to attempt to list off all the names of your books, but I will list the names of the series. And if you want to name them, you can. I will butcher the names. You have the Blood Singer trilogy, which those ones are easy. Blood Singer, Blood Queen, and Blood Origins. I can pronounce those. And then you have the Realms of Elswith.
Yes, the Realms of Elswith, which are 4 interconnected standalones. We have the Curse of Orlon, the Vengeance of Alari, the Sacrifice of Eros, and the Assassin of Erilith.
Yeah, see, I would have butchered them. I'd have butchered them, and she would have been correcting me every 3 seconds. So there's
okay.
And now, are all of those out, or you have one that's almost released, right?
The one I have one that is almost released. It releases on this coming Tuesday, the 4th of March, and it is the last one in that series.
Ooh, see, so you can almost get all of them, and you can.
Yeah, and those are really short, quick little reads. They're little babies.
See, you can get that read count up quick with those. Just saying, you can add your numbers. Okay, and then we have Miss Cass Leigh, which I feel. Listen, I kind of special place in my heart because she is the mother of my favorite Canadian. Sorry, Mona. Sorry, Mona. Even
that's okay.
Even my Canadian twin doesn't get that title. So special place in my heart. Also, I've seen her join us in this author community from her babydom in authoring all the way to publishing. So Miss Cass Leigh, she is a multi-genre author. I love her so much. She got her publishing debut in the Hear Me Out anthology with us. And I loved that story. I can't wait to read the entire thing. I haven't gotten to read the expanded version of that story yet. I can't wait. But she's also the author of a novella that's coming out in August, I believe. Lady Luck.
Yes.
And it's part of the Deadly Garden Coalition with a bunch of other authors. And that one sounds really interesting. And we're going to hear some more about that in a little bit because I'm going to ask her 12 million questions. And she's probably going to tell me you're going to have to wait about 12 million times. But that's okay. But the magic and the just world building that you guys come up with, I can't do it because it involves a whole lot of like holding things back, and I don't have that in me because I'm like, I made a cover, want to see it? I don't do cover reveals. I don't do like mystery and like anticipation. I'm like, here's all the things. Want to see all the things? Here's all the things. Here, I'll just throw it in your face. I don't do a whole lot of build up. I can't do it. And you, I don't
It's
know.
hard
You
to keep
guys,
the secret.
I can't. Like, I'm horrible about it. Even I think that's why my stories, I don't know what's going to happen. My characters don't tell me. They don't tell me ahead of time, and I think that's why, because I would just give it away. They know. They know. And I think that's why I can't write fantasy, because I would just give it all away. You got to know ahead of time, and you got to know the world. There's my favorite Canadian. He's sneaking in. Hi, baby C. That's my favorite Canadian. Sneaking in.
He had to make a cameo.
He had to make a cameo. He said that was Tarta. He said, I hear Tarta. I hear Tarta. Anyway. But yeah, so I've always been fascinated by it. And I think it's because when you aspire to something, there's always this fascination with it. So what I have are questions that you guys are going to be like, I get asked these questions 12 times a day, but I'm going to ask them again. So the first thing I want you guys to do is give us a rundown of your worlds. Like, are they based on a made up place? Are they based on a modern place? Are they based on an ancient world? Whatever. What are the basic creatures that you have in your world? What is the crucial fight that they're fighting? You know, that sort of thing. Who wants to go first?
I can go. So I have one world that I've built, and that's where I intend to stay and play in for quite a lot of books. So I built Otheros, and it is a total secondary planet. This isn't our world at all. So it all started with map, because I am a nerd, and I wanted to make sure that my all of my climate zones were appropriate. And so I had a really big place to play, because a very long time ago I wrote my first book, and it was a hot mess and full of plot holes, and I wanted to avoid that, so I needed to know everything about this place. So I spent a good 5 years building that, building this world, making up places, and that's when I set the characters loose in it. So yeah, it started with a really big map. So in my world, we have magic that is constantly trying to balance itself out. So, and that causes a lot of problems, because people and beings in general don't like to share resources, right? You know, they want the magic, and if they have the magic, they're going to try to find a way to collect as much of it as they can. However, there is an overall kind of morality to the earth itself. Like, there is like one, it's almost like the earth has a spirit, and it's like, no, we're going to balance this. So it is it gets complicated trying to keep everything organized, I will admit. One of the things that I did say in the beginning to my oldest daughter was I didn't want to have living gods show up in this series because it complicates things. And of course, boom, they showed up.
Of course they did.
That's how that happened. Death was just like Kool-Aid Manning through the door, like, here I am.
I love that.
Yeah, and I'm like, great, thanks. You just added to the word count. Um, and I grew up in a very Scottish, Irish, Canadian community called Glengarry, and we were told all throughout, like, as kids, basically because we were farm kids, that fairies are scary, right? They would tell folk tales, they would tell all sorts of stuff to try to keep you, like, don't go in the old church ruins, or this type of fairy will eat you, or, various other things. So the fae that do pop up in these books are terrifying and will give you nightmares. They are not pleasant, they're not sexy. And then, of course, like, my main species that we're following right now are dragon shifters. And the big issue that they're having is it's a dragon shifting species, and they're having a fertility crisis. Now, it's a big problem on its own, but it's an even bigger problem when you're a matriarchal society and you are now having a fertility crisis. And the balance of power is shifting, and that's kind of where it kicks off the whole series. All right, tag
Nice.
someone else's it.
Do you want to go next or do you want me to go?
You can go.
I will go. So I have. Well, we're gonna focus on the Realms of Elswith series since I do have multiple series, and they all do happen in different worlds. But what I really like about the Realms of Elswith is it's all centered around Elswith. But there are portals that lead to these different realms. So I did not have to build one realm. I had to build 7 because we have Elswith, which is a not almost non-magical place. It is all humans that live there. And these portals, some of them are known, some of them are not, but they all lead to different realms that all have different types. It's mostly Fae, but each one has a different twist. So we have Orlon, which are like these dark Fae, but then most of them have been cursed to be turned into these terrible creatures. We have Mermaids, which are water Fae. We have Fae with fire magic. We have Fae with wings that look like angels that live in floating islands in the sky. So it was definitely really fun to create all of these different worlds. And the way that I started was I made my map of Elswith first, and I placed the portals, and then I hand drew. I'm not an artist. I am not an artist. So these were just for me so I could figure out where exactly everything was going. The realms maps, and they're very terrible and very basic. So,
Wait a minute. You just need to put these in an insider's guide and we will decide.
oh, they're bad. They're pretty bad. I have it underneath my computer monitor. Otherwise, I'd show them to you right now because it's propping. The notebook is propping up my computer monitor because it's a thick notebook. But they were pretty bad. But I had to decide, what did these realms look like, and why were they all so different, and how did they all? Because originally they were all one realm. Um, so that was really fun, and then trying to figure out, okay, well, what type of fae would live in each place. And with the Realms of Elswith, they are all interconnected standalones. They all have different battles that they need to fight. Orlon, they have a curse that is turning their people into monsters. um, I'm sorry, did I say Earless or did I say Orlon? I got them all mixed up in my brain. So Orlon, they're all like turning into monsters, and you have to break the curse. In Earless, we have some betraying family members, so that they can gain the throne, and the princess is coming back. And um, in Alari, we have a little mermaid type character who wants to go find her uncle in the human realm because she thinks it's better there. It's not, and her uncle's evil. And in Eros, we have it's actually Eros was fun, especially with the world building aspect, because with arrows, I actually had to build 2 worlds specifically for that one. So we have these floating islands in the sky, and we have the ground below, both of which are very different from one another because they were separated because of something that they call the Great Calamity, which I won't spoil what that is, so you'll have to wait until the 4th to figure out what that is. But it was a fun time to create all of these different worlds and the type of fae that live there. And then for Bloodsinger, it's vampires. And it's like a weird mix between modern city and like medieval fantasy. So in Bloodsinger, there are 2 countries, but one of them has been separated by a wall, and all of the magic was like sapped from that land. So it was a wild time in that area. And when I go to build my world, I do a map first, just so I know where everything is. But as far as like how the characters interact with the world and what they're doing, I pretty much make up all that as I go. And even some of like the world building aspects itself, I will make up as I go. And I need the map though, because I need to figure out where they are and where they're going. Without that, I'm like, how long did they travel? They traveled 3 days to get here, but only 2 days to get over here. So the map is very important.
You don't want it to be 2 weeks to get to a diner?
No, can't be 2 weeks.
Travel time math is the worst.
It's so hard. It's so hard. I'm like, I don't know. 2 days. Everything's 2 days. One time I was writing a book, I'm like, everything, it takes 2 days to get there because I can't deal with it.
If anyone questions the time discrepancies, you go, it's magic.
It's
Magic.
Correct. It's magic, which is one of the best parts of writing fantasy because you're like, it's magical. Nothing makes sense.
It's my favorite answer when people are like, but how did they shift back and they have their clothes again?
Magic?
It's magic. What?
You're like, that's the thing you're questioning?
But that's not realistic.
Well, neither is magic. Neither are shifters.
I write shifters. What are you talking about?
It's like, this is the hill you're going to die on? Really? Where the clothes went?
It's funny that you bring that up, too. So when I was writing my mermaids, it starts with them underwater in her mermaid form. And the whole time I'm like, what do mermaids do? Like, I need to make it, like, believable, but, like, what do they eat? What do they... Like, you can't say that they, like, stand, so what do you have to say? What do they live in? And you're like, you just make it up. It's all made up. Make it up. It doesn't matter what you put. But I was, like, harping on it so bad.
You get lost in the details sometimes. You can get lost in details. Mm-hmm. All right, Miss Cass, you can talk about the coalition. You can talk about your other worlds that I know that you still work on. So which one you want to talk about, or both? What you want to talk about?
Well, I'll leave the coalition because I feel like you actually said you have questions about it, so I'll leave that. But that is an interesting experiment because that is a world.
The world was given to you, wasn't it?
Yes, and you have multiple authors kind of adding details as you go, so that's been a really interesting exercise. But for this, I'll talk about the world in Magic Dark and Buried, which is, I did a short version of that for the Hear Me Out anthology.
Amazing. Anyway, go on.
And thank you. And with that one, I'm very long-winded. And so I had to I made it more urban fantasy for the Hear Me Out because I didn't want to get so wrapped up in the world building that I blew past our limit for word count. But then for this full-length version, I'm able to talk as long as I want. So I have been able to actually really branch out with the world building. And so this one is way more heavily fantasy. So the world is based as kind of a mirror image of our world, and our world does exist within these books, but the main character is in this mirror version. And so all of my main characters are witches, elemental witches specifically. And the idea is that they branched off and they used their magic to make this mirror world when things became too dangerous for them in our world. And so when they went, to their knowledge, they really took the magic of our world with them. And so this world exists separated by what I call a veil. So for me, I actually didn't start with a map, although I feel like I cheated because I used like our world as a general idea map, and then I started doing coven territories all over it. So it was very fun, but I really started with a village because for me, this little haven where the main character is from was so vivid for me that I started there, and then things really started to branch out. But the idea is that these elemental witches inhabit this world, and there's kind of a class system with earth witches being on the lower totem pole. Um, and that's who my main character is. And she's kind of brought in when there is this sickness that's starting that's affecting how their magic works. And she's basically sent off to find this person they think will save them. And it was kind of based off the Hear Me Out anthology had a trope flipping aspect to it, and I wanted to kind of flip the idea of the chosen one and have this person who's unimportant going out to do this to find the chosen one kind of idea. But I am still as I go. The rough draft is written, but I'm still going back and I'm still adding stuff because I find there's still so much that I'll have an idea and I just want to add on it and really
That'll
make it more
never
magical.
stop.
I want to be like, all right, shut her down sometimes, but
You gotta
lot,
stop it because
yeah,
it's never gonna end.
yeah, and like there's lots of I borrowed from a lot of different mythologies, just creatures that I thought would be interesting, and then I also had this really fun and wild 2 weeks where I just researched a bunch of monsters from different mythologies, and then I like kind of picked apart and created some of my own that are within the story. And I really am very attached to them.
I read her story because, as one of the organizers from the Hear Me Out anthology, we kind of divided up the stories in like two out of the three of us or two out of the four of us would like beta read the stories. And so I got to read her story and I was like, you're gonna expand this, right? Like,
I was gonna be like, oh well.
first of all, I have barely any notes. Like, good job. I don't. This is a fantastic story. I don't know. Like, normally you go into it, especially when it's a brand new author, and you're like, okay, you did really good, but you need to expand here. You need to do this. I need more crayons. You know what I mean? Like, you have all these notes, but we were like, add a comma. I don't. Wow. Like, we had like barely any notes. So we were like blown away that she did such a great job. Not that we don't think she can. We knew she could, but like normally it's not that fantastic right off the jump. But then we were also like, where's the rest of the story? Cuz now we need the rest. But it just she did such a good job. So I was like, I want the rest. I want the rest of the story. I need the rest of the story. But I cannot write I can't write the fantasy unless it's urban. Okay, I can't write the fantasy unless there's bikers and shifters involved. I just can't. Um, I dabble in the fantasy. I don't the big fantasy, epic fantasy. I can't do it. So you guys seriously amaze me with it. But one of my favorite parts about it, you guys have all touched on, the maps. When fantasy authors, you open their books and you see those maps, I will stare at those maps. I'll be like, oh, I can stare at those maps. I don't understand half of the maps, okay? I don't understand them, but they're so pretty. I can just stare at them and be like, oh. So you've all touched on them. And maps are extremely important for like any author, really, honestly. I was dumb and didn't make a map right off the jump from my series, and now I need to make one because I am like 16 books in and forgetting who lives where and next to what. And so I commend all of you for having a map right off the jump. That is amazing.
I did not for the Bloodsinger trilogy, and I regretted every moment that I didn't have a map. But at that point, I was so deep, I was like, we're just gonna figure it out as we go. And then the next series I work on, we'll do maps.
I'm kind of like contemplating putting in my newsletter, hey, who wants to go through my books and pick up all the hints and stuff that I leave and create a map for me? I will give you an entire series. You know what I mean? Like,
That's a good point.
Yeah. I do fantasy cartography for other authors as well. So, yeah, like I'm an illustrator. So again, a designer. I do all of my book covers. I do all of but I do a lot of art, and I work on maps for my own books and for other authors. It's interesting working with other people to see their dream come to life, but also to remind them that rivers exist, and
right, right. Like, they need water.
if you have that many cities in a small area, you are going to need a source of water. Um, and they can't
I
all
know
be.
who I will be hitting up for when I need a map for my next series. I know who I'll be contacting
Exactly.
because I didn't put any rivers on my map.
I'm just gonna pull up an image or two on the iPad to show you guys. But yeah,
Sure.
I do have in my books. I just made a map for Earlith that goes in the books. I didn't do one for every individual realm. Why? I don't know why, but it gives it to the mystery. It leaves it a mystery on what these fey realms look like. But here's my
leave
little
it
map.
open.
It's not very um detailed, but it's some little towns, and there's no, as you can see, there's no rivers. Not a single river to be had. And I do have some really cool looking islands. Like I have this little like crescent moon shaped
There
island.
might
And
be
then
there may be some
That's
creeks in
cute.
there.
yeah,
You just
Yeah,
I
can't
do.
see them.
So I have like a little like lake up here. I have these little islands down here that are surrounded by tentacles.
Oh.
it looks great.
Thanks. I'm not a designer by any means, and I want like my next map that I put into a book to be one of those absolutely like gorgeous ones that you want to like hang up on a wall somewhere.
So this is Altheros.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's my current world that we're in. I'd show off the others, but I don't. They're not published yet for the other authors, so I'm
Oh, no.
not sure where we stand on that.
Totally get that.
But yeah, I do them in grayscale. 1 minute, Margo. I do them in grayscale first, so they look good inside a printed book, because that's something as well. You can get a little playful with the colors, and then they don't print in grayscale nicely. So, but yeah, the iPad's amazing. We've come a long ways from rice and paper.
Right. Now, are there um are there any resources when you are building your worlds that you rely on that you would like go hard for?
So I guess I'm gonna be a big nerd. Um,
Love that.
I really look at the what's it called, National Geographic, and the different biomes and climate zones and how they butt up to each other, so that your transitions are natural. Um, because knowing the place and the resources available and the weather really allows you to build a very big and deep culture based, and it's realistic because you look at how somebody in a desert would create a society and a community and how they would survive, and it's going to be very different than how the in the north in the Arctic would create a community and survive, and their mythology is going to be very heavily based in the actual dangers in the world around them. So you have dehydration being a big issue in the desert, whereas if you fall into the Arctic Sea, you're going to freeze. So you would have different monsters, and like different ecology would evolve right from there. So that's really it, is figuring out the geography right from jump is a huge deal for me, because then I can look at what would realistically live in that sort of area.
Their culture is going to be heavily influenced by the weather patterns and
The
the
weather and
geography.
what food is available to them, and then like, yeah, resources, like because you're always trading, so you would have minerals and stuff in the desert where you'd have furs in the Arctic. So it's really broad based, but yeah, I'm a huge nerd. It's geography all the way for me.
That
That's
makes
really
sense
cool
though.
though, because I've never thought to like go that in depth with it, but that is really cool. And I
Yeah.
love to see how like everybody's brains work,
Yeah.
and everybody does stuff so different, and that is so unique, and I love it.
Mm.
It makes sense. And see, this
Yep.
is why world building fascinates me, because there's always something to learn by each person that builds the world, because they all look at it from a different perspective and they all go down a different path. Some people start with the hierarchy, some people start with the creatures, some people start with the map, some people, you know what I mean, like they all start from a different perspective. And if you get down to why they start there, and you focus in on the reasoning behind it, you can you can learn something, and then you can go, oh, but that makes sense, and it can influence how you move forward. And the way I write books, or well, the way I edit, I should say, is when I edit, and Cass has heard me say this 12 times, I think. The way I edit is when when I'm going through my edits from Elizabeth, I try to see a habit that I have done in that book that I've done wrong, and try to figure out what I'm doing, why it's wrong, learn from it, and moving forward, not make that same mistake, right? So learn something and try to change it going forward. And I do that in a lot of aspects of my life, but and not just doing something wrong, but doing learning something and changing it moving forward. So like that's kind of how I approach a lot of different things, and it's the same thing with this. Like if you want to improve anything, you can talk to other people doing the same thing you're doing and kind of like see how they're doing it, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like the geography thing. Maybe the next time Willow writes a book or Cass writes a book, and they can go, well, let me look at the geography, or let me look at the, you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
never know. It could be, so, no, I don't know. But,
What for my current work in progress that I'm working on, which is separate from any of the stories that I currently have out, it's a whole brand new world, new magic, and it's more based on elemental, like different types of magic. So what I did first was, instead of I did make a map. I'm probably going to change it, but I went through and I made myself a reference for my magic in this world on what type of, you know, casters are there, like what elements are there, and what exactly can and can't they do with their elemental magic. So it is just the basics: light, dark, fire, earth, air. But can a fire person, conjure fire in their hand, or does the fire already have to exist for them to be able to manipulate it? Stuff like that. So that is really important too, with as you're building your magic system, to keep some sort of reference. That way you kind of know what's going on. And in the past, like, I haven't really done that because there's only been, the magic was very straightforward in some of my other books, or wasn't as I don't want to say as big of a part of the story, because with the Realms of Elswith, they are so short. There's only so much magic that I can show in 100 pages. But with my next project where it is so big and there's so many different types of magic, for me, it's really important to kind of keep that all straight and know exactly what they can do and what they can't do.
I actually just want to piggyback on that. I do the same. I use Notion to make, and I have pretty much a full wiki for my
What is
world. So,
Notion?
okay, Notion is really handy and it's free. Basically, so like your Wikipedia, you
Yeah.
can make one in Notion for your own world. So
Oh.
I have templates that I've built because, again, I'm a nerd. Um, I don't mind sharing them because it's really handy. Because then I have different categories for like geography or the magic system and different characters. And a big thing in there is I have like I'll tag things as these are canon. They've appeared in the books. And then I have other and then I'll leave the stuff that I know this, but this hasn't appeared anywhere, just not bolded because that can change. But the stuff that's bold can't change because it's in there somewhere already.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
The
I'll have to
typing
check
is
out.
beyond
I'm just using a Google Doc right now where I'm just like, here's the
Oh,
type of magic, and then here's a bunch of bullet points.
you will love Notion then because basically you can write in like a topic and hit enter and it'll make a page for that topic and you can just click on it and dump all your stuff in there. It's really fun. It's addictive though, and it is a time sink. That's why I'm like, I'll give you my templates so you don't have to build a
Oh,
template because that's where
I
you
would love
lose
to
the
look at
time.
your template. Yes,
your
thank
hero.
you.
Tess is like,
I'm
send to me, send to me.
Yes, because I'm
20.
also mine's in a Google Doc because like you guys I've got Willow, I'm also doing the elemental magic, and so I have like how does it work? What are the limits? How is it channeled? Um and I've got this mismatch of just in a Google Doc right now. But just so I can keep that internal logic, because I think that's you can go so many different ways when you're world building. You have to make sure that you adhere to that internal logic, right? But Mona, like you said too, I'm not as brilliant as you in using National Geographic. I love that. But one of the things that I've really enjoyed is taking, so where my covens are, like I have a coven who lives right in the mountains. And I had so much fun sitting down thinking, okay, how would they grow food? What does this look like? I have like their whole area is lit by these bioluminescent, like glowworms and that kind of stuff. So just like, and how does that impact their culture and how they interact with everybody else? That is so fun to have that tagged to that geographic area and that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm not as organized as you. It's a Google Doc all the way, and I just hope that I.
I'm also several books in, and one completely failed series start that I started 10 years ago. So, like, it comes with time and failing. Like, not necessarily failing, but like, my first book, I was not organized. I was also 23 and gung ho, and I was going to write a big fat fantasy book. And I wrote a big fat fantasy book. And when I went to write the sequel, there were so many big fat plot holes that I was really struggling with how am I going to make a satisfying ending for this? And, I had to make the very hard decision to unlist and unpublish that very first novel. Like,
I
it
didn't.
was
My
like,
first four. I unpublished my first four, so I get you.
yeah, it was like the bad pancake theory. The first one's always kind of wonky. Well, my first one had like extra eyeballs. Like, but it really inspired me to look at this from a much more strategic angle when I was building this world, because I was like, I want to build something I can play like 20 some books in. Now I'm releasing them in trilogies so that people aren't going to be like, well, you're never going to finish. I'll be like, well, here's a finished trio and here's a finished trio.
I love
You
that.
you can
Yeah.
go, but I'm playing in the exact same sandbox. That's my plan.
Piggybacking off of that a little bit, so I'm about to release my 7th book, and I've learned with every book I write, I get more organized. I find new ways to keep that information together, um, and not have as many like, why did I mention this? Like, what did that have to do with anything? But yeah, every time I start a new project, I'm like, oh, I learned to do this and I learned to do that. And I've talked to people that I've never talked to before, and they've told me that they do this and it works for them. Let's try it.
I love I love that, especially, and I notice it more with independent authors than I do with the bigger name authors. But we don't gatekeep information. Um, we will tell you all of our tricks, every last one of them. Um, because we're not competitors, and we know that we're not competitors. We cannot write every book that our readers are going to read. We just cannot. Um, so we will give you all of our information, every last bit of it, all of our tricks. We will tell you exactly how to do everything. Earlier today, I was explaining to Jeanette how to make a universal link, um, like all
One
the things.
of one of my biggest regrets when I was working on my debut novel was not getting involved with the community, because everyone is so kind and so wonderful. I have really bad social anxiety, and it's on the internet. I have now learned to be more open and I'm more comfortable talking with people, but when you first start, I was very intimidated, and that is one of my biggest regrets as an indie author, was not talking to people, because it would have saved me a lot of time, and I maybe would have had an easier time with publishing my day. Not that I had a hard time, but I would have learned so much more than trying to do it all by myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because a lot of times, if you ask, we'll just tell you.
Oh yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
times, if you say, how do you do this? You'll have 12, 13 authors going, oh, I know how to do that. And
Yep.
another author will be like, yeah, that's one way to do it. Here's another way to do it. And another author will say, yeah, or you could do it like this. And then another author will go, yeah, any one of those ways will work.
So
You know what I mean? Like,
this is my message to everybody that's watching this. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Make a TikTok, join the Facebook groups, join the Discords. And I I published on a whim. I was going to wait, but I got all my stuff back and I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to publish it. So I published my first book because I was too excited. And then I was like, oh no, what have I done? I should not have done that. Internet, what if everybody hates it? And you had stitched the video and you were like, come join us over in the Hype Girls. We got you. We're going to hype you up. And I felt so
and I
seen
was like,
in that moment.
and you were like, I don't know, I need an editor. And I was like, I know an editor.
Yes, yes, and she's the most amazing editor. And oh my God, wonderful, wonderful. And if I had Elizabeth for Bloodsinger would have been amazing, because Blood Queen and Blood Origins is chef kiss.
We're just,
I love, yeah,
that's just how we are. And
yeah.
like, do you
It's a
do
lot.
you do you see the do you see the scenes playing out in your head? Like, do you see them, like, are they like a movie?
I
Yes.
have no mental image at all.
See, and that
It,
boggles my mind.
so that's why Elizabeth yells at me so much in my edits, because I have no mental image. So sometimes it's really hard for me to describe what things look like.
She asks for crayons all the time, doesn't
She
she?
does. She
Yeah.
does. And I'm like, she's like, you have to describe what this looks like. And I'm like, I don't know. It looks like a room, like a room. I don't know.
You've seen a room.
Room. She's like, where are they? And I'm like, uh, she thinks I hate castles. She's like, what does your castle look like? I'm like, it's a castle. There's no definition. It looks like a castle. Terrible. It's terrible. But I love when she puts those notes, because then it makes me be like,
It makes you think
okay,
about it.
what does this look like? But yeah, that is like one of my like biggest world building struggles, is I have no mental image. So sometimes it does take me like a long time to figure out how to describe how certain things look.
Has she thrown Lowe's cards at you yet?
I don't think I don't think I've had any Lowe's cards. No, just lots of crayons.
They'll come. Don't worry.
Oh, the descriptive thing though, I'm also guilty of, and I do have a mental image, but whenever I go to write it, it sounds like, and it was a big circle. There were pokey things,
I'm
and they
very,
glowed.
I'm, I'm very dialogue heavy, and like how they interact with each other. I also have ADHD, so I'm like, I want to get into what they're doing. I don't care what color, what the color rug is. I want them to be screaming
Just so
at
you
each
know,
other.
she has ADHD too.
Oh,
So
she cracks me up.
I'm like you, Willow. Like I do have a mental image, but the first thing that comes to me is the dialogue. Like I can hear my
Yeah.
characters far better than I can
me
see
too.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so lifelike. I have to look for the mental image, and like I have it, but I'm like you guys. Like I think for me, like I go back to when I had to read, I think it was like Jane Eyre in high school, and I'm like, I don't care about the color of the drapes in the room. I don't care about this. So
Exactly.
when I'm writing, I kind of
I
don't
don't
think
either.
about that as much. So that is one thing I get notes on. They're like, what does this look like? What does this look like?
I'm like, it's a green car. It's green. It's
Yeah.
green.
The dialogue is more interesting, I
The
find.
guy.
And it
Yeah.
feels like you're going much faster than you are, I feel like. So when I'm writing dialogue, I feel like I'm moving.
Yeah.
And I'm moving fast. I'm like, oh, we're just like blowing through this. Even though it's the same number of words as if I were to write
It
several
just feels
descriptive,
like
it
things
just
are
feels
happening.
faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's more interesting to me.
I agree. Yeah, I love dialogue. I love character interactions. But if I have to get into like describing what things look like, I'm like,
But
I
in Elizabeth's defense, she's usually right.
she is usually right. No, she is, and I love when she puts those notes in because I really have no idea where I'm supposed to put that stuff. So whenever she's like, please put some crayons here about what is on your table other than the pheasant they are eating, and I'm like, they're in a castle. It's supposed to be luxurious. I think I wrote the word like opulent, and she was like, yes, these are the crayons I want.
I can picture her doing this too, actually.
Yeah.
It's funny when I read a fantasy romantasy book, when it is really vivid, the descriptions, I do love it.
Yes.
It's just my brain, that's me like walking through concrete to try to
Yeah.
like flesh it
Yeah.
out.
That's editing Mona's problem.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
first,
Yeah.
like when I'm drafting, I'm speed running the thing. So like I am not a overwriter by
What
any
it
means.
is it's past Mona. Editing Mona gets mad at past Mona.
Oh yeah, because
Yeah.
past Mona's lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Editing cast will be like, this is 70% dialogue. We need to know where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the same way though. I'll do mostly dialogue while I'm like drafting, and I'll put some like, some description like
I'll put a
descriptions
note.
in there.
I'll put a note brackets, and in the brackets I'll be like, insert description here. And
Yeah,
then when I go to edit, I'll be like, past hair is a
No.
bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, brackets, and then, well, I guess this is gonna sound awful, but triple X because it's easy to search.
Yeah.
Oh, for
And
sure.
then I just keep
That's why I
going.
use the brackets, because I don't use brackets for anything. So I use the brackets, and then when I go to do my editing, I'll search bracket, and then the bracket will pop up and be like, oh, I still got stuff to do.
Yeah.
Bracket. How dare you be there? How dare I put that bracket there 2 weeks ago?
I'll never forgive past Mona for the time she bullet pointed a whole chapter. And I was, yeah.
But you know what? Sometimes you have to do that to be able to get the idea of what you want down. But if you're struggling to kind of actually formulate it, you know what you want to happen and it needs to happen. But let me just bullet point it and then I can move on to the next scene because I'm struggling with this scene.
You know what?
Editing Mona was not impressed though, because she didn't know either.
Do you know what my favorite note was for a chapter that I left behind for myself? Some such shit.
Was that helpful when you were editing?
I had no idea what I meant to put in that chapter. None. I just knew a chapter was there. It was supposed to go there, and some such shit was supposed to go in that chapter.
You gave
That's
yourself a
good.
lot of wiggle room.
Yeah, yeah. So like, for everybody watching, we put a lot of work into these books. Sometimes we stress ourselves out.
Yeah.
But do you have, okay, so you've given some advice. Do you have any other advice for somebody who's about to sit down and plan to build their worlds before they start writing their first story? If you were sitting across from that person and they're like, okay, I'm gonna build my world, do you have any other advice you would give that person?
Don't
I
be
don't know.
afraid to throw words out.
Okay.
Like, it's not a waste. It's not a waste of time. Whenever you were writing those words, you were working out something you needed to. Because
Okay.
I used to just hate, taking out big chunks of things. Or I built this place and it's really cool and I'm going to jam it in somewhere. It never works that way. If it doesn't come on its own, you can save it for later. Often I have a whole folder full of places and things that I built, and I was like, these are going to go somewhere someday. They're not. But moving them to the folder feels less painful than deleting them.
Maybe they'll go into your next world.
Maybe.
You never know.
Or maybe that strange looking cat just wasn't supposed to be there.
I mean, in that vein, though, I think starting out, for me, just throwing everything I thought would be cool or that was really fascinating to me that I thought might be great as part of the world. So just not limiting myself to start and then slowly parsing it down and what actually works with the logic of this world and to create a cohesive like universe. So exactly what you said, Mona, don't be afraid to let things go. Or, it might cycle into something else, but start broad and then just start what actually works here. What's not just, I think that's really cool.
So don't be afraid to cut your darlings.
Mm-hmm.
Let me think, because that's what I was going to say. So now let me think of a new one. I'm going to say, we talked about having the importance of having a map, even if it is just a little notebook that you have and you draw it with a pencil and it looks like garbage and you just put, there's a town here, there's a town here. I think that's also super important. That way you have a lay of the land and you know which way is up in your world. I think that is super important. Um, and if you're using magic, again, a list of the magic also kind of important too. And it can always, as you're writing, you can always add to that list too. You're like, oh, I thought of a new thing I want them to do. You can include it in there. It's not end all be all. It is easily deleted and added and changed.
In my advice, I don't write fantasy, but my advice is if you have questions, reach out to any one of these people.
Yes.
That's my advice. I'm voluntolding them to answer your questions. And yes, I just
You know
made up a
what?
word.
My DMs are always open for new authors. I really struggled with my first book, and I don't want anyone to struggle the way that I struggled. So my DMs are open, and if I don't know the answer, I will find somebody that has the answer. Um,
We kind of all are like that. Like, I have a hard time not helping people. It's one of my biggest it's one of the things working through in therapy is saying no. But we are all kind of like that, I think, in a way of if we see an author needs help and we know where to go or we know somebody that knows how to do it, we kind of all rally around the person. Or we're like, hey, can you help so and so? They need help doing this, and I know you know how to do it. So we kind of make those connections and we help people network. We have always, as a community, I swear, if they just put a bunch of book talkers in charge of these countries, we could solve everything.
we could.
Um,
I mean, a lot of us write Whether no matter what our genre is, a lot of us have political
Books.
intrigue and books
Books.
with very
Book.
political books. I think we could,
Exactly.
all books and reading is political, but there's a lot of people that go really in depth with it. So
We
I
do.
bet you we had some people that could really, really
Listen,
do well.
I can't say we would solve every problem, but we would solve the majority of the major problems. In one way or another. We would solve the majority of the major problems. And I fully believe that. I fully believe it. There wouldn't be a hungry kid on this planet. Promise that much. And they would all know how to read. Um, they would all know how to read, and they would all have mental health uh, taken care of. We would
Yeah.
make sure they all had their mental health taken care of. But I'm going to give you each a moment to discuss your projects that you're working on and tell people where to find you. And then we will wrap this up. So go ahead, Mona. We'll start with you. We'll just kind of round robin.
Okay. So I am working right now on the final book in the trilogy for the Draconic Chronicles. It's just going to be called Curse of the Lists. So it's taking a little longer than planned. Things are kind of crazy right now, right? So, and I have anxiety. So, yeah. Uh, sorry, 1 minute. My daughter just said that my anxiety is going crazy because I have kids. That's the
Well, that
6-year-old
too.
wisdom. It is very smart. Okay, so yeah, I'm working on that. I'm really excited to get started on the next trio, which my antho piece, A Witch's Voice, was actually is going to be the intro to this new series that'll be coming out in the same world, and we're looking at witches on wyverns, which is going to be fun. And yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. Doing a lot of book shows, book fairs in the meantime. And Tarta got me set into 3D printing, which took off like no tomorrow. So that's been interesting. I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, so that's it for me.
All right, Willow, what about you?
I am about to release my final book in the Realms of Elswith series, which I'm super excited about it. Um, and then after that releases, I have some secret projects that I'm working on. I don't want to give too much because I am a yapper and I will spill the tea and then I'll hate it and then I'll throw it away and then I'll work on something else. And I don't want to get anyone excited and throw it away. You know what I mean? Because I did do that like a couple months ago and I
Oh,
feel bad.
no.
Yeah, I was like super excited. I tried to dip my toes into like a new genre, and I got like I think like 20K in, and I was like, I don't like this genre. I am not writing this genre. um, but so I'm super excited for that. Um, but yeah, right now my main focus is this release that is coming out. It is I can the sacrifice of Eros, which is arranged marriage and all sorts of he falls first, hidden identities, hidden magic, all sorts of fun stuff. And then you can find me, where can you find me this year? I will be at a vampire witch ball in October, which is called the Nocturnal Elegant Social or Elegance Nocturnal Social. You can find it on my website, willowasteriabooks.com. There's a little thing there where you can buy tickets for that. It is in Baltimore, Maryland in October. I don't remember the exact date, but I'm very excited for that. And you can find all of my books, the Realms of Elswith trilogy, and not trilogy, the series, and the Bloodsinger trilogy, all on Kindle Unlimited and Audible as well. Well, these three are still in the works for Audible, but the Curse of Orlan is on Audible, as is all of the Bloodsinger trilogy. And that's me.
All right, Cass. Miss Cass
Okay.
Lee.
Yes. So, um, my my novella is coming out in August. So it's called Lady Luck, and it's part of the Deadly Garden Coalition series, which a bunch of authors are each writing a novella for. I think there are three of us releasing each week throughout the month of August. So you can really just immerse yourself in that universe. She is an assassin. There's vampires. There's a ton of magic. It's really, really fun. And then my first novel, Magic Dark and Buried, I'm aiming to have out by the end of the year. It's just being edited. And Tara, I don't know if you know, but the second one has been started. So I'm really excited about that. But you can find me at Castley Writes on TikTok, and my Instagram is also the same.
And on top of all of that, well, you guys find me at tstappin.com. I write bikers and shifters, not fantasy. But on top of all of that, three of us, me and Mona and Miss Willow, are in the Vengeance for Valentine's anthology.
I have it right here.
And that is still out.
It's beautiful in color, friends. In
I
color.
know. It's so pretty.
12 authors.
12 authors. They all have the who did this to you trope. Um they all have vengeance, and it's all romance, but all different subgenres, from
Yes.
cowboys to sports to alien romance, some fantasy in there. Yeah, but yeah, everything from like not being allowed into a movie premiere to unaliving somebody as far as vengeance. So it's a wide variety.
I think
Um,
mine had so much unaliving. So
yeah.
much.
Um, but yeah, we're very proud of that. All the proceeds go to the American Heart Association. Um, but yeah, it's very pretty, and I'm so proud of that cover and
It
the
is
formatting. I worked so hard on that.
It
it's
is
gorgeous.
gorgeous.
I love
Beautiful.
that it's in
Thank
color,
you.
and I love that there's no blank pages.
None. I was very specific about that. It took me forever. I was like, we are not having any blank
Let's
pages in this
see
document.
if I can find one. Here we go. Look at this, friends. Look. So gorgeous.
I was like,
And the
no blank
book.
pages. Not one. So so yeah, that's still available on the Zon. But yeah, so and yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up. But thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. I will have you all back at one point or another.
Thank you so much for
Um,
having me.
Yes,
yes.
thank you for having us.
But yes, it's been great having you. I love you all. Cass, make sure you give my favorite Canadian all kinds of cuddles and love,
Oh,
because he's the cutest little thing. Um, Fun little side note: when he was fussy, when he was younger, and when Sarah wanted to get him to calm down, um, she would just go to my TikTok and scroll through my videos, and he would just sit there and listen to me talk on my videos.
That is
yeah.
so cute.
Hmm. We have a bond. Anyway, all right, love you all, and thank you for watching, everybody, and we will see you next time. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna stop recording.